Your what's. Discovering your core message. Problem. You may have a powerful story or idea, but defining a clear and impactful core message can be challenging. And without a strong what, your talk might lose focus and engage less. So your what is it's the one problem you want to solve. It's the one improvement you want to see in the lives of the people who are either in the audience, live when you record it, or watching it on YouTube, anywhere in the world. Anyone with an internet connection can access YouTube and learn, grow, and get better thanks to your TEDx talk. That's why the what is so important. The solution? This lesson will guide you through a structured approach to help you identify and articulate a compelling what for your TEDx talk. This involves exploring your personal motivations, interests, and potential impact of your message. I think all of my TEDx talks, all 12, have been on one aspect of mental health or another. And my original TEDx talk, Start the Conversation, my core message was starting the conversation on suicide. Because as I was practicing that first TEDx talk, I realized that even though one person in the U.S. dies by suicide every 9 minutes and every 40 seconds around the world, hardly anyone talks about it unless you bring it up. And then almost everyone has a story. So that is my what. That is the through line in my TEDx talk. We'll get to through line a little later on, but that is my what. Object of today's lesson, to introduce you to the concept of defining your core message, or your what. And we will address, what your TEDx talk will address, ensuring it's clear and resonant, and hopefully goes viral. I believe after hearing my what, hopefully you thought, wow, that's clear and it resonates, because it does resonate. It's the heart and soul of the keynote that I do now. It resonates with my audience to the point where after I get done speaking, there's often a line of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people who want to ask a question or share a story. So I know it resonates. Okay, the process is backstory, purpose, core message. Explore your backstory. Here's the thing. TEDx, their premise, their tagline, an idea worth spreading. And they love a good idea worth spreading, either a new idea or a great twist on an old idea. But you know what they like better than an idea worth spreading? Is an idea worth spreading with a great backstory. You ever watch America's Got Talent? Very talented people, for the most part. There's some goofballs on there, but most of them are very talented. But next time you're watching, notice that most of the people who are competing have an amazing backstory. For example, something like this. He was convicted of a murder he did not commit. He served 35 years in prison. He sang every day. His goal was to be on America's Got Talent. Here he is. Please welcome. So he was a great singer, but he had an amazing backstory. That's why the backstory is so important. So for your backstory, reflect on life-changing moments. Judy Carter would say, pull out a piece of paper, open up a Word or Google Doc, and start with your very first memory. And just make a list of pivotal events, challenges, victories, personal, professional, academic, or educational. Just everything you can remember, either a challenge or victory, whether it's personal, professional, or academic. You know, the big haps, as we used to say in the 70s, in your life. Just make a chronological list. I think you'll be amazed at things that aren't top of mind, that will come to mind as you make that list. For example, I took a class one time on positive mindset, something. And what the gentleman had us do as our first exercise was divide our life into decades, 10 years at a time, age 1 to 10, 10 to 20, so forth and so on. And I'm 67, so I've got 6 decades and change. And in each decade, he said, figure out what the worst thing was that happened to you. And see if, in reflection, there was a silver lining. And in my first decade, 8 years old, Thanksgiving, my birthday, my father passed away. That was probably the worst thing that happened in that decade. However, if you read Malcolm Gladwell's book, David and Goliath, he says that one of the worst things that can happen to a child is to lose a parent before the age of 15. However, there is a silver lining. When the child realizes it has survived, when I realized I had survived the passing of my father, it makes that child more resilient, less risk averse. He says it's the mother and father of courage. You've taken the worst that the world can deal to you and survived. So that would be the silver lining in my first decade, tragic though it was. I miss my father. I wish I had gotten to know him as an adult, because everybody I talked to thought he was a really nice guy. But, that's life. So, look back. Start that way. Start with decade by decade. The worst thing, I would say the worst thing and the best thing that happened to you. And I would say the worst thing and best thing that happened to you personally, professionally, academically during those decades. Maybe that'd be a good place to start. And then fill in, the blanks in between. Let's see. Examples might include a career milestone. You got a job or didn't get a job. Major family event like the passing of my dad or the birth of a child, or an educational achievement. When I graduated high school, I told my mother I was going to Los Angeles to be a stand-up comedian. And she said, and I quote, "No, son, you're going to college first. I don't care what you do when you get done. You can be a goat herder for all I care, but you're going to be a goat herder with a college degree." So I went to UNC Chapel Hill. I got a BA in political science and a BS in labor management relations. So I guess that would, although I really didn't care, it's not what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a political scientist. I didn't want to work in labor management. I wanted to be a comedian, but I graduated. So that was a milestone of victory because it means I could leave and go to the West Coast and pursue my comedy dream. So I married my high school sweetheart. Should never have done that. We had nothing in common. But you know what they say, opposites attract. She was pregnant, I wasn't. I'm kidding, we never had kids. But I did marry my high school sweetheart, and we did end up getting divorced. She didn't want me to be a comedian. So that was a milestone. That was, the marriage was a milestone because I knew going in I shouldn't be doing it. Getting divorced was a milestone because it cut me loose to do stand-up comedy. So do you see what I'm after? Is those events in your life, those pivotal events, those pivotal moments in your life. Now, once you've got those, analyze their influence. Examine how these moments have molded your values and beliefs. Reflect on specific lessons learned. As my wife would say when I make a mistake, well, did you learn something? Yes? Well, then let's move on. So those events, those pivotal moments, go back to your document and see if you can figure out what lessons you learned in the process and how those lessons contributed to your personal and professional growth and a change of perspective. Sometimes a pivotal event can completely change your perspective. Alrighty. Identify recurring themes. Look for consistent patterns or themes that run through your life story. I'm trying to think what is a theme that runs through my life story. Well, have you guys ever heard of imposter syndrome? I didn't know that was a thing until a friend of mine started a podcast on it, had me on his podcast. Imposter syndrome meaning that you look good on paper, but you feel like you're not as good as you look on paper, and that somebody's going to figure out that you're not as good, and they're going to take it all away from you. I have what I believe to be reverse imposter syndrome. I've had it since the 4th grade. I believe I am better than I look on paper. I'm just waiting for somebody to figure that out. I told my first joke in the 4th grade. The kids laughed, the teacher was hysterical, and I knew from that moment that I was going to be a stand-up comedian. My tagline now is, often wrong, but never in doubt. That's the theme of my life. So look for recurring themes, patterns that run through your stories. I have pursued my dreams. I have chased what I believe should be what I am doing. When I got on stage as a comedian, my first open mic night, halfway through my 5-minute set, I heard a voice inside my head that said, "You're home." So I'm one of the fortunate few who has been able to chase my dreams and achieve my dreams. I've been a stand-up comic speaker coach for 38 years, full-time. And my dream from the 4th grade was to become a full-time comedian. So let's see. Consistent pattern theme. Determine if there's a central narrative. Now you know my central narrative. Or a consistent message that links your experiences. Document your story. Write your backstory. From the notes you made on your Google Doc or Word doc, those pivotal events, personal, professional, academic, familial, whatever. Write your backstory. and put the emphasis on the most informative, transformative experiences. This particular detailed narrative will provide a valuable foundation for crafting an engaging and meaningful talk for your presentations. Your messes and stresses, as Judy Carter would say, all the things that went wrong in your life. That's what people really want to hear first. In a keynote speech, they want to hear messes and stresses first. In a TEDx talk, they want to hear your messes and stresses first. And then your successes, and what you learned, what the lessons were, is the third part of a TEDx. Messes, stresses, successes, lessons. That's basically the format for a TEDx. Find your purpose. I didn't. Part of my purpose was to be a stand-up comedian, make people laugh. I wanted to make a living making people laugh. But you know what? From the day I started as a professional comedian, I not only wanted to make people laugh, I wanted to make a living and make a difference. I could just never figure out how to do that. I couldn't figure out what I had to teach anybody. As I say in the speaking business, what my content was going to be, what my learning objectives were going to be. When they hear me speak, they learn how to what? After they've heard me speak, they'll be able to what? I had no idea. I knew I was born to be funny. People say to me, tell me about yourself. I'm a comedian. No, not what you do, who you are. Well, at the risk of being redundant, I'm a comedian to my core. Every part of my being. I mean, that's just the way I think. I think I can teach you to write stand-up and perform stand-up. I cannot teach you to process the incoming information the way I do. I am a stand-up comedian to my, all the way down to the bone. So that was initially my purpose in fourth grade at 9 years old. I'm going to be a stand-up comedian. Now, after the last recession, meeting planners and speakers bureaus said to me, look, Frank, we love you, but we cannot pay you $5,000 just to be funny for 45 minutes. You've got to teach our audience something. Again, I'd been wanting to do that for decades. I just had no idea how. A friend of mine, Judy Carter, who wrote the book, The Message of You, Turn Your Life into a Money-Making Speaking Career, is the subtitle, gave me a copy of her book. I said, Judy, I need to make the jump from comedian to speaker. I need content. She goes, read my book, Frank. You'll figure it out. I went into it thinking I got nothing. About halfway through, I realized I do have something. I did have something. You see, depression and suicide run in my family. It's called generational depression and suicide. My grandmother died by suicide. My great aunt died by suicide. My mother killed herself slowly. And during the last recession, after filing Chapter 7 bankruptcy, I came close enough to dying that I can tell you what the barrel of my gun tastes like. Literally. A friend of mine came up at a keynote. He'd never heard me say that I didn't pull the trigger. And he goes, hey, man, how come you didn't pull the trigger? I go, hey, man, could you try to sound slightly less disappointed? So I realized, given my close brush with suicide, the fact there are more nuts in my family than in a squirrel turd, and the fact that I live with two mental illnesses, major depressive disorder and chronic suicidal ideation, I could speak on suicide prevention if I got some training, some accreditation. And so I did. I took several courses on suicide prevention and began keynoting on suicide prevention. Now, the reason I did my first TEDx talk, do you want to know? Because I've been a comedian for 2.5 decades. Who is going to take me seriously? Who's going to believe I can talk about anything serious? So I thought I'll do a TEDx. And I did a TEDx on suicide prevention, starting the conversation. And I proved to the meeting planners and the speakers bureaus I could do something serious with humor. Like the joke I told about my friend who came up and asked me why I didn't pull the trigger. No jokes, but funny personal anecdotes. So my purpose became reducing the number of suicides. My formula is this: take your pain, turn it into passion. Your passion into purpose, your purpose into profit. Yes, my passion is saving lives. My purpose is to train others, to empower others to do the same. And I get paid to keynote on that. So that's my passion into purpose. So you identify your passions. Again, make a list. Open a Word doc, open a Google doc, make a list of topics, issues, activities that captivate, energize you. Things you could talk about at length without prompting. Things that you're excited about. Things that you don't have to force yourself to read about. I'm a political junkie, and I don't have to force myself to watch, political television. because I'm just a political junkie. As some people are sports junkies, I'm a political junkie. And so I enjoy listening to podcasts and such on politics. So what is it? What are the topics, issues, or activities that really turn you on, as we used to say? Reflect on what you're eager to explore, discuss, or, engage in your leisure time. Address global challenges. Global challenges because TEDx wants to impact the largest number of people with your TEDx talk. There's an old expression, act locally, think globally. That's kind of what they're after. They want whatever you do in that TEDx talk to impact the most people worldwide. Because anybody with an internet connection can access YouTube and your TEDx. So if you can perhaps, let's say climate change or sustainability or environmentalism or something similar, a global issue, is what turns you on. It's what you like to do a TEDx talk on, is your passion. That's great because those are global issues. But there are global issues that aren't quite so dramatic. The divorce rate in the U.S., 50% of first marriages, 60% of second marriages, and 70% of third marriages end in divorce. So I'm sure it's similar around the world. So that could be a global issue. It doesn't have to be climate change. Utilize your unique skills. What are your individual skills, talents, areas of expertise? Consider how you can leverage these things to make a significant impact or a contribution. TEDx wants you to contribute to anybody who watches you getting better, to anybody who watches you improve for having watched that TEDx talk. Find your authentic message. Yes, I don't think you're going to have a lot of luck getting a TEDx talk if what you're talking about is not your passion. Because it comes off inauthentic, I think. When I speak on suicide prevention, the people in the audience have no doubt that I am being authentic. When I tell the audience that I put a gun in my mouth and I can tell you what the barrel tastes like, they know I'm being authentic. Yeah, some of them are a little aghast, but the ones who have a mental challenge are now leaning forward because they're thinking, this isn't academic for Frank. He's got lived experience. And that's what they pay me for, that lived experience. I don't have a degree in psychology or psychiatry. I'm not a therapist, but I do have quite a bit of lived experience. That's what they pay me for, and the humor. So find your authentic message. Explore where your passions intersect with your unique skills and talents and the world's needs. What does the world need to hear from you? This convergent is often where you discover your compelling and genuine message, your idea worth spreading. And you combine that with a great backstory, yeah, chances are you're going to get that TEDx. Okay, frame your core message. Brainstorm key ideas based on your backstory and your passions. Identify key insights that you want to share. Again, what were the lessons you learned in your backstory? What about your passion excites you, makes your heart sing, makes you where you can't help but tell that story? Determine what you want your audience to know. What do you want to teach them? What do you want them to feel? What's the first thing you want them to do when they leave the theater? That would be a call to action. Is the first logical step after they leave the theater using the information you just gave them. That's a call to action. And by the way, at your audition for a TEDx, they're probably going to ask you, great idea. Now, what are you going to teach the audience? Super. Now, what's your call to action? So I recommend you have those written down on a document so you can just rattle them off when they ask. And have that and any research you've done, links to any research you've done. Because if you quote a scientific fact or figure, they're going to want to see a link to double-blind, peer-reviewed studies backing up that fact. Because if that fact gets in there into your TEDx and you can't back it up, it's probably not going up on YouTube. A lot of people don't know this. TEDx has a couple choices. Put your TEDx up on YouTube, put it up on YouTube with an editorial note, or not put it up on YouTube. So be careful. I've got a client. Last July, I was on the TEDx with her, and she made a medical claim, and I had begged her to frame it in such a way that it didn't sound like she was saying that what she was talking about would cure cancer, but it came out that way. And there's no study to to show that what she was talking about has anything to do with a cure for cancer. And it didn't go up on YouTube, sadly. Test and refine your message. Share your core message with trusted friends, colleagues, mentors, and anybody in your family, friends or acquaintances, colleagues that are going to support you. Be careful sharing it with people who think you've lost your mind by trying to do it. There are people out there who will discourage you. When I was getting ready to leave California, San Diego, to go on the road to do stand-up comedy full-time, I was selling insurance. On my last day at the insurance agency, a guy named Bill said to me, "You're going on the road to be a professional stand-up comedian?" Right. You'll be back. Well, that was 38 years ago. Yeah, Bill, if you're waiting, I think you could stop waiting. I'm not coming back. So be careful with whom you share it, but do share it. Do share it and gauge their impact and refine your message using their feedback. I want you to perform this thing or run your ideas past live humans before you put it on the application to send to the TEDx committee. Okay. Now, align message with audience needs. Ensure your core message addresses the needs, challenges, and aspirations of your intended audience. And each TEDx is local. So do a little research on the area. You want some of that impact, some of the needs you address, some of the challenges you address, some of the aspirations you address to resonate with the people in that community with the issues they're facing, in addition to having a global impact. So, X in TEDx means local. So, try to work something local into your TEDx for the people in the audience in the room. Consider how your unique insights and perspectives will benefit them and then benefit everybody else globally. Remember, your TEDx is an opportunity to share your unique story and insights with the world. By exploring your backstory, identifying your passions, and framing your core message, you can craft a talk that not only informs and inspires your audience, but also authentically represents you and who you are and what you stand for. One of the greatest compliments I ever got. I was working on a cruise ship doing stand-up comedy. I had lunch with one of the passengers, and he came to my show that night. And after the show, he came up to me and he goes, I just got one question. I said, what is it? He goes, how can you be the same guy at lunch you are on stage? Bingo. I was being authentic. I am the same whether I'm having lunch with a cruise passenger, whether I'm on stage at a comedy club, whether I'm on a podcast. I'm the same guy shows up every time. That's what you're looking for in your TEDx. We want that person, that version of you, the version of you walking around to show up on stage at the TEDx. Be authentic. Embrace the process of self-discovery. Trust your inner voice. Trust your intuition. Trust your gut. Whatever you call it, I would recommend you trust it. If I trusted my gut, I would have never married my first wife because my intuition was screaming, it's a mistake. And I ignored it. Have not ignored my intuition since. Your TEDx talk has the power to spark meaningful change. That's what TEDx committees are looking for. A TEDx talk that will spark change, both in your life, because it can enhance your professional career, and in the lives of those you reach. Okay, now homework. You didn't think we were going to have homework? Oh, come on. That's homework. Before watching the next lesson, download and complete the document titled, wait for it, your homework. No, your what's homework, because that's this part of the module, your what, which can be found inside the folder icon located at the top right of the platform. There's a lot of stuff that's going to be in the icon at the top right of the platform, including your homework assignments. Next lesson, your whys. So we covered the whats. Next, we're going to cover the whys. I'll see you there.